Welcome to Let Us Know channel. Today we will discuss on the salient features of National Pension Scheme notified by Government of India on 31st March 2021. As you are all aware, Government of India has introduced National Pension Scheme in place of old pension with effect from 1st January 2004. In the new National Pension Scheme, employee is supposed to contribute 10% of his emoluments, while government also will contribute equal amount. And this government contribution has now been increased to 14% of the emolument. And the detailed rules were notified on 31st March 2021. Now we'll discuss the important points of the rule. These rules are called Central Civil Services Implementation of National Pension Scheme Rules 2021. They have come into force on the date of application in the official gazette, which was 31st March 2021. These rules shall apply to all the central government employees appointed substantively, that is permanently, to civil services on or after 1st January 2004. The general conditions are, when an employee joins in central government, he is required to submit a form in which he will give his details of date of birth, etc., which will be registered in the NSDL portal. They are the record keeper for all the pension funds, etc. And they will allot what we call PRAN, that is Permanent Retirement Account Number. With that number, from the first salary onwards, government servant will be contributing his 10% of the emoluments, while government also will contribute the equal amount. So this will be kept in the fund, and in order to avoid delay, the rule specifies very clearly what are the timelines for each side of work, etc. Like when an employee joins, he will be given that form. He has to fill up within 3 days and submit within 3 days. Within 3 days he has to submit to the head of office, who will verify all the particulars and submit to the DDO or PAO, as the case may be, for onward submission to the Central Record Keeping Agency. And at each step, there should not be more than 3 days time. And Central Record Keeping Agency will also process immediately online and provide PRAN number back to PAO or check drawing DDO. And they will immediately inform the employee. Simultaneously, Central Record Keeping Agency will also send one PRAN kit, which will contain basic information of the pension funds, etc., which can be retained by the employee for his future reference and other things. And all these steps are expected to be completed within 20 days of joining of the employee. Let us see more about all these timelines now. These officers, that is, drawing and dispersing officer, head of office, pay and accounts officer, and the Central Record Keeping Authority have to ensure registration of new pension account, that is Permanent Retirement Account Number, and allotment to the individual within 20 days. They will ensure that there is no delay in the process of registration of the government servant in the National Pension Scheme and crediting of first contribution in his individual pension account. The first contribution shall be credited within 20 days of submission of application by the government servant or by the last day of the month in which the government servant joined, whichever is later. That is, if a government servant joins during the 1st to 10th of the month, his salary will be credited on the last working day along with the registration process, everything, and crediting of the pension fund on the last day. In case he joins after 10th, maybe within 20 days of his joining, which will be beyond the month end also. So his salary will be processed separately within 20 days of his joining, and the pension fund contribution shall be credited into his pension fund account. When we say 10% of emolument, what is meant by emolument? Emolument is government servant will have basic pay and dearness allowance, which is granted or revised every 6 months, that is 1st of January and 1st of July onwards. So the 10% of the basic pay plus dearness allowance shall be taken as emoluments for calculating the employee contribution. And during the period of leave, if somebody goes on leave, the leave salary is drawn on various grounds. Like if it is on earned leave, normally there is no reduction in the salary. But if it is half pay leave or extraordinary leave, which is salary without pay, so it will be salary actually drawn during the month. Assuming that if somebody is on extraordinary leave for 10 days, he may not get that 10 days salary. So the remaining 20 days or 21 days, whichever number of days he gets salary. So from that salary, basic pay and DA, the 10% value will be taken. And in case of suspension, the suspended employee is paid subsistence allowance, which is normally 50% and raised to 70% or something like that. And from that amount, 10% will be calculated. And if the employee is on deputation during his service, whatever basic pay or DA he will be drawing, that will be taken into account. In case he goes on foreign service, then it will be on a notional basis. Like, what if he continued in the earlier regular service? Same value will be taken into account for calculating the contribution by government employee and the matching contribution from the government. About percentage of subscription, which we have already discussed as 10% of basic pay plus DA. And when the 10% of basic pay plus DA comes to in paise also, it will be rounded up to next higher rupee, assuming that when the amount comes, some whole rupees, say 1550 and paise 10, the 10 paise will be rounded up to next higher rupee, making 1500 and 1150 into 1151. So it is not rounding nearest rupee, it is rounding up to next higher rupee. That is one important point. And in the case of suspension, if the employee is interested to contribute for the pension fund, it can be recovered, otherwise not required. However, after the final order, if the suspension period is treated as duty or leave, then same normal rule, entire period salary will be calculated and adjusted against the differential value will be paid after adjusting the subsistence allowance, etc. And the total salary will be taken into account for payment of pension fund along with matching government contribution. And in this scenario, since the final order is likely to take more time, naturally the employee will be paid interest also, which will be equivalent to the interest paid on provident fund during that period. And similarly, contributions in respect of arrears of salary, suppose any retrospective revision of salary or retrospective promotion, whatever it is, when the revised salary will also have its component of pension fund. So that amount will be treated as paid on the month of payment. That is, there is no interest payable for the arrear payment. So it means contribution in respect of arrears of salary due to retrospective increase shall be treated as contribution for the month in which it is made. And subscriber, that is the government employee, has an option to make contribution in excess of 10% also, but government will not give any matching contribution for the excess amount. The DDO shall deduct the contribution from the salary of government servant and send bills to pay and accounts officer or check drawing disbursing officers, as the case may be, along with the contribution details on or before 20th of every month. After the bills are received from DDO, the pay and accounts officer or CDDO shall prepare and upload the subscription contribution file, which will be generated online, and it should be done before 25th of each month. Thereafter, the CDDO or the PAO, as the case may be, shall remit the contribution to the trustee bank through the accredited bank of their office by the last working day of the month, except for March, since March salary is paid in the first week of salary. So, in the case of March salary, the subscription shall be deposited in the first working day of April. In case of delay in crediting the subscription of pension fund to the individual pension account beyond the prescribed timeline, that is last working day or whatever it is, due to the factors not attributable to the subscriber, interest shall be credited along with subscription as stipulated in Rule 8, which we'll discuss a little later. Already, when the government servant contributes 10% of his emoluments, now the government is contributing 14% of emoluments, rounded up to, as usual, next higher rupee. Suppose if the employee is on leave on medical ground, or he is not able to join due to any civil commotion, or take the case of corona time, he is not able to join, or he is not able to join due to pursuing higher studies which was considered useful to his official duty, and if the leave salary is not payable during such period or is payable less than the normal salary, the government contribution shall be on the notional emoluments comprising the amount representing pay and DA. That means, under these circumstances, government contribution will be on the total salary that he would have drawn in case he continued to be on duty during entire month. Subject to the above proviso, no contribution shall be made by government for the period during which government servant is not required to make any contribution. Suppose if he is on extraordinary leave, he is not required to pay any contribution. Same way, government also will not make any contribution. That's what it means in this rule. Similarly, during the period of suspension, government contribution shall be on the basis of subsistence allowance paid in case the employee opts to pay the contribution. If he doesn't opt for contribution, government also will not make its contribution during that period. However, upon issue of final order, in case the suspension period is treated as duty or leave, the difference amount of government contribution together with the interest which will be payable for the public provident fund during that period will also be deposited as government contribution. The provisions for timeline for deposit of government contribution are same as already we discussed. So Normally, when an employee joins within 20 days of his joining or the last day of the month in which he joined, his first contribution should be deposited. And then during every month, the monthly contribution should be deposited on the last working day, latest by the last working day by the concerned authorities. And only in the case of salary for the month of March, the first working day of the next month, that is April. In case of delay, and the delay is not attributable to the employee, that is, suppose if employee is not ready to submit the form for whatever reason or he has delayed, then government cannot be blamed for that. And if employee is absent, his salary was not processed in time due to his absence, etc., again it is attributable to the employee. So where the delay is attributable to the employee, no interest is payable to his account. In case of delay, which due to factors not attributable to the subscriber or the employee, so the interest payable for public provident fund will be calculated and added to the subscription fund. This rule is made effective to ensure that employee is not put into undue disadvantage by delay in processing by the administration. The rate of interest we have already discussed is at par with interest paid for public provident funds, and that interest shall be credited within 30 days of crediting the amount of contribution. And for earlier period also, that is prior to the notification from 1/1/2004 to 31st March 2021, the guidelines are issued by Department of Financial Service, which should be applicable in case of delay. So employee who found that their contribution was unduly delayed, they can raise the issue to get proper interest for such delay. Now the delay is to be handled in the following manner. Every case of delay in registration of subscriber for allotting PRAN number, that is permanent retirement account number, or deposit of employee contribution or government contribution, shall be examined by the head of the department for fixing responsibility. And if the head of the department is satisfied that the delay is caused on account of administrative lapse, the delinquent official or officials shall be liable to pay the amount of pecuniary loss to the government on account of payment of interest. That is, the interest paid by government will be recovered from the employees who are fixed responsible. This is without prejudice to any disciplinary action which the disciplinary authority may propose to take against such officials responsible for the administrative lapse in this respect. This is the very important part of this rule. The investment of the pension fund is handled as notified by the pension fund regulatory authorities, and every government servant covered under National Pension Scheme shall, at the time of joining the government service, exercise an option in form number 1, which says certain points like, in case of unfortunate death of the government servant or is becoming invalid due to medical condition, he can opt for family pension to the family in case of death based on the Central Civil Service Pension Rules 1972 or Central Civil Service Extraordinary Pensions Rules 1939, and in case of disablement or invalidation, pension under these rules. This is a kind of social security clause For a government servant who doesn't have large money in the corpus fund, he may not be able to get sufficient fund for his pension. So government has provided this option which can be changed when the government servant feels that his fund will give him more return. So there is no limitation of number of times to submit this form. The first time a government servant should submit this form is at the time of joining itself. Afterwards, whenever he wants, he can change the format for getting pension etc. from his corpus fund in case of his invalidation, or for getting family pension in case of his unfortunate death while in service. This option form number 1 shall be exercised to the head of the office, who will accept after verifying all the facts written in the format and place it in the service book for future reference, and also send a copy to the central record keeping agency through DDO or PAO as the case may be. And PAO also shall make suitable entry in the online system of the fund. And every government servant shall also submit details of the family in form number 2 to the head of office. And in case the government servant does not have any family, he can furnish the same as soon as he acquires a family. And whenever there is a change in the family, that should also be notified to the authority in the form number 2. This will be helpful for payment of final payment at the time of retirement or in case of unfortunate death of the government servant. The government servant shall also communicate to the head of office any subsequent change in the family details, like birth of child or marriage of children or anything, and so on and so forth. And in case of disability of any child, making him unable to earn his living shall also be brought to the notice of head of office with supporting medical certificate prescribed in the rule. The head of office shall, on receipt of Form 2, acknowledge receipt of Form 2, countersign with the date, and get it pasted in the service book or uploaded in the e-service book. The head of office shall also incorporate Form 2, the changes communicated by the government servant as and when he communicates. The option in form number 1 for getting either pension from the NPS fund or from family pension from the CCS Pension Rules 1972 can be revised at any number of times by the employee before his retirement, and the head of office or DDO or the PAO shall take necessary action for updating in the record for future reference. A subscriber who is discharged on invalidation or disability shall be given an opportunity to submit a fresh option at the time of such discharge. That means there are 2 options. One is for getting funds from the NPS fund. The other is getting invalid pension from the government CCS Pension 1972 rules. So in case an employee is invalidated on medical ground, the government gives him again an opportunity to opt for any one of the option, whichever is beneficial he can take, and that will be paid to him. Now this option etc., where a government servant did not exercise an option, dies before completion of 15 years of service, that is before completing 15 years of service, or within 3 years of the notification of these rules, that is this rule was notified on 31st March 2021. So before 31st March 2024, his family will be granted family pension in terms of Central Civil Services Pension Rules 1972 or Central Civil Services Extraordinary Pension Rules 1939 as the case may be, as a default option. And same is applicable in case of discharge of government servant on invalidation. Suppose the invalidation is so terrible that he is not able to exercise his option, then again government gives better option, which is this pension under CCS Pension Rules 1972. In all other cases, the claim shall be regulated in accordance with the Pension Fund Regulatory and Development Authority exits and withdrawals under NPS regulations 2015. We will discuss this rule in a separate video. In cases where the option exercised by the deceased subscriber for benefit under CCS Pension Rules 1972 or CCS Extraordinary Pension Rules 1939 becomes infructuous on account of non-availability of an eligible family member, such option would be deemed to have become invalid and the benefits admissible under NPS shall be granted to the legal heirs in accordance with the Pension Fund Regulatory and Development Authority within bracket exits and withdrawals under NPS close the bracket regulation 2015. That is, government is not going to say that the option exercised is for CCS pension rules and there is no family, so we will not give the fund. No, this is not the intention of the government. Government will pay the funds of the national pension scheme under the relevant rule, which is Pension Fund Regulatory Development Authorities Regulation 2015. And in case of retirement and superannuation, the government servant shall be entitled to benefits in accordance with the Pension Fund Regulatory and Development Authorities exits and withdrawals under NPS Regulations 2015. This we will be discussing in another video later on. Now, in case a government servant wants to retire from government service after completion of 20 years of regular service, he can give a 3 months notice, and once the government accepts this notice, he may retire from service and shall be entitled to benefits in accordance with the Pension Fund Regulatory and Development Authorities exits and withdrawal under NPS Regulation 2015. And after the voluntary retirement, the subscriber can continue his individual pension account or defer the payment of benefits by exercising an option in accordance with the Pension Fund Regulatory and Development Authorities exits and withdrawals under NPS Regulation 2015. Similarly, if an employee is retired as a measure of compulsory retirement under FR 56, or if the employee has to retire under special voluntary retirement scheme, he will be entitled to benefits in accordance with the Pension Funds Regulatory and Development Authority exits and withdrawals under NPS Regulations 2015. In case as an employee or subscriber is declared surplus in government service and he opts for special voluntary retirement scheme of Department of Pension and Training, Department of Personnel and Training, he shall also be entitled to the ex gratia admissible under the scheme in addition to the benefits in accordance with the Pension Fund Regulatory and Development Authority exits and withdrawals under NPS Regulations 2015. After the compulsory retirement, if the subscriber intends to continue his individual pension account or defer the payment of benefits, he can exercise an option in accordance with the Pension Fund Regulatory and Development Authorities exits and withdrawals under NPS Regulations 2015. The idea of this rule is, even though a government servant is retired under FR 56, his pension entitlement will remain based on his subscription and based on the corpus fund status at the time of retirement. Similarly, Resignation from government service is also handled as follows. The lump sum and annuity out of the subscriber's accumulated pension corpus fund shall be paid in accordance with the regulations notified by the authority. In case an employee joins a public sector or corporation from government service on absorption basis, etc., he can continue with the same PRAN number in case this national pension scheme is operational in the said corporation. Otherwise, he can get the benefit in accordance with the Pension Fund Regulatory and Development Authority exits and withdrawals under NPS Regulations 2015. That is, there will be no loss of his fund. He will get all the savings that he made along with the return due to the investment of the funds. We have already discussed about option for invalidation time, etc. So, what are the entitlements? First, if the employee has opted for government pension on becoming invalidated, then the individual pension account also be closed and government contribution and the returns thereon in the accumulated pension corpus of the subscriber shall be transferred to the government, and employee's contribution with the return thereof will be paid to the employee. And same way, entitlement boarding out from service on account of disablement, it is similar only, invalidation, same procedure. So employee contribution will come back to employee and government contribution will go to the government along with pension payable under the Central Civil Service Pensions 1972 rules, in case the employee opted for it. In case the employee is opted for NPS fund, entire fund will be added together, and the normal rule is 40% fund will be retained as annuity payment and the 60% payment of the corpus will be paid to the employee. In case of compulsory retirement as a punishment or dismissal or removal from government service, the employee does not lose his pension fund. The lump sum and annuity out of the subscriber's accumulated pension corpus fund shall be paid in accordance with the regulations notified by the authority. Same way, the effect of departmental or judicial proceedings pending on retirement also, the fund available in the pension fund shall be paid along with annuity. So, though punishments will be different, they will not be deprived of their pension fund. We have already discussed about the format of option in case of death of government servant, what are all available. That is, the entitlement for family on death of a subscriber is based on the option exercised. The family pension or the fund from the NPS will be payable. In case of payment of family pension under CCS Pension Rules 1972 or CCS Extraordinary Pensions 1939, the government contribution and returns thereon in the accumulated pension fund shall be transferred to the government account. And similarly, employees' contribution will be paid to the family. Now, the duty of the government office, that is administration, is every year on the 1st of January, 1st of April, 1st of July and 1st of October, they will prepare list of subscribers who are due to retire within the next 12 to 15 months and submit a copy to the PAO and estate office also within 1 month. Estate office, government servant might be allotted government quarters, so they should be notified about their retirement and all. These are all the final payment procedures to be done by the administration in any department. Once the list of retiring employees is prepared, Directorate of Estates will be intimated for issue of no demand certificate from the estate office, and head of office will write 1 year before the superannuation of the employee for issue of no demand certificate from estate office. Submission of claims for benefits under NPS shall be done 6 months before the retirement in the prescribed forms. At the time of retirement, the submission of claim etc. are prescribed in form number 4. Form number 4A is retirement on superannuation or voluntary retirement or even retirement under FR 56J etc. And form number B is for technical resignation or absorption in a public sector undertaking. And form number C is for resignation or compulsory retirement as a measure of penalty. And form number D is retirement on invalidation or disablement. And form number 4E is death during the service. The head of office shall forward the completed forms to PAO 4 months before the retirement for final payment to the retiring employee. And the following are the forms 1 and 2. Form 1 is for option, as we discussed, for family benefit, and form number 2 is indicating the family details. You have a look at these forms. Thank you. Let us see again. Thank you, friends. In case of any query, you can write in the comment box and I will try to reply all your queries. Thank you. We will meet again.